We must step up and protect abortion rights around the country. Now, I remember the days of unsafe abortions very well. I know personally how devastating the consequences of restrictive abortion laws can be. We cannot and will not go back to those days.
Protecting abortion rights front and center in D.C. today. The House passing the Women's Health Protection Act, a bill to conserve abortion rights. It's a symbolic response in some ways to restrictions like those put in place in Texas, a near total ban of the procedures. Abortion providers from the Lone Star State are now calling on the Supreme Court to fast-track their challenge to the law. We've got the view from both sides of this story, both angles of it. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams with the latest on the Supreme Court piece of it. And NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale is following the details and the progress of this legislation in Congress. So, Ali, let's start with that. What exactly is in this legislation? How is it designed to safeguard against these state-level anti-abortion laws?
Garrett, what this bill would do is basically take the federal government and make them the people making the blanket rules for the states. All of these different state restrictions that we've seen through laws there have sought to limit the ways that abortion providers can provide abortion to women trying to access it. What this would do would codify it on a federal level, thusly making all of those state moves pretty much moot. Here's what Diana DeGette said about it when we were at that press conference earlier that you just showed. Take a listen.
This bill has been introduced for 8 years, but we never had a pro-choice majority till the last Congress in the U.S. House of Representatives, and the urgency was never as great as it is now with the Texas law and the Mississippi law and the cascade of laws that we expect to see, and that's why we're bringing it up now.
And there is concern from Democrats around what this whole list of states that are starting to do these restrictive laws around abortion. There's concern from Democrats that now is the time that they need to act on the federal level. Of course, you and I are in this building all the time. We know that just because the House passed this piece of legislation doesn't mean it's actually going anywhere. You called it symbolic. That's true. It's really a messaging bill for Democrats. All but one of them voted for it, a chance for the party to say they want to stand up for these federal protections. But the realities here on the Hill are that this is not likely to pass the Senate.
And you mentioned that lone Democrat who voted against. Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar was the one who made it 218 to 211 here. What's he saying about his vote?
He's not, but there are other groups like Emily's List, for instance, a group that really backs mostly women, but definitely pro-choice Democratic candidates. Cuellar actually has a challenger in his primary race. He's one of the few Democrats who tends to vote out of line with the rest of the party on this issue. So while he's being quiet on it, there are other groups that are looking at his vote as something that they're going to bring up further down the line in his primary. He's one of those moderate Democrats. We've seen him sort of stepping out of line with the party on things like infrastructure, other things like that, immigration. But certainly on this issue, he is standing alone in voting against this, and we haven't heard any reaction from him. At least not yet.
And Ali, you mentioned the tough sledding that this bill will face in the Senate. Democrats would need 10 Republicans if all 50 Democrats were in line, and even that may not be the case. What's the sort of state of play on the Senate side?
Yeah, there are 48 co-sponsors on the Democratic Senate version of this bill, but that's not the full Democratic caucus. You're right. There are 2 Democratic senators, Bob Casey and Joe Manchin, who are not co-sponsors of this. Democrats wouldn't just need those 2 senators to get on board. They'd also need to get 10 Republican senators on board for this. People who have crossed party lines on this issue before, people like Senator Susan Collins from Maine, she has said that she thinks that this bill goes too far. She says it infringes on things like religious freedom exemptions that she wants to see codified in something like this. So she's not on board. We don't know if Senator Lisa Murkowski, another one of the Republican senators who can sometimes cross party lines, we don't know her opinion yet on this. But even if those 2 were to come around, the number realities just are not there yet for this to pass.
Yeah, I know you'll stay on it. Ali Vitale, thank you.
Thanks.
And let's go to NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams covering the Supreme Court fight, or the potential Supreme Court fight, over this Texas abortion law. So, Pete, you've got a group of abortion providers in Texas. They're asking the justices to speed up their review of this law. What's their argument for fast-tracking it, and what does fast-tracking it really mean in the context of a Supreme Court case?
Well, their argument for fast-tracking it is basically this, that they think that the lower court should rule that a state cannot pass a law in such a way that makes it insulated from judicial review. In other words, they're appealing to the baser instincts of judges and saying, hey, they're trying to take this issue out of your hands. Don't let them do that. The way it normally works in the federal system is you sue. If you lose, you have a right to appeal to a federal appeals court. If you lose there, then you can ask the Supreme Court to take your case. This case did go to a district court in Texas. It's now before the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. But what the groups supporting abortion rights in Texas say is that the Fifth Circuit is moving too slowly, that the case would be argued at the earliest in December. And then if they lost there, they'd have to appeal to the Supreme Court. It would take months to get a decision on this. And they say in the meantime, Texas is in crisis, that people needing abortions are going to other states to get them, and that many people can't afford to travel outside of Texas to get it. So they're asking the Supreme Court basically take the case away from the Fifth Circuit and go ahead and take it now based on all the briefings that are available. Move the thing up basically several months by doing this.
So House Speaker Pelosi really excoriated the court's handling of this law so far. Here's what she said this morning.
When this court embraced this shameful Texas law, they brought shame to the United States Supreme Court because they were not embracing something which was counter to the precedent of the court that has upheld Roe v. Wade as constitutional.
Now, given the possibility that the justices are not watching NBC News Now tonight and may not see that soundbite, I mean, I kid a little bit, but I know that they're unmoved by these kinds of public comments typically. How likely is it that the court will take this public pressure, will take the pressure that they've gotten from Congress and move this case up in the docket as you were describing?
The likelihood is It's unlikely the Supreme Court would do this for the simple reason that the court almost never does. This is called cert before judgment, and it doesn't like to do that. It likes to let these cases work their way through the courts to get the benefit of what other courts are saying about these disputes. And this one is a novel one here because there are lots of, this is the reason the court gave for not taking not blocking the case in the first place. They said, we don't even know if we have jurisdiction here. We've never seen a critter like this come before us. It's written in a way to avoid judicial review. Is there a handle on it for us? We don't know. That's why, I mean, I don't think they embraced the Texas law. They said they didn't want to have anything to do with the challenge at this point. But I won't say the court never grants cert before judgment, but it rarely does. So I think the odds against this are pretty long. And even if the court did say, OK, we're going to do this, I think the earliest it could be argued would probably be in January or February, with a decision, of course, not until June. And if the court did grant the case, then I suppose the abortion opponents could say, look, stay the law while you consider it. I just don't, I mean, it just all seems like a long shot at this point.
So we may see that Mississippi case argued first then?
Oh, definitely. The Mississippi case is already on the books. It'll be argued December 1st. This is the case that's a direct challenge to Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade, in a follow-on case called Casey, basically said that states can regulate abortion, but they can't ban it before the age of viability, which is 23 to 24 weeks into the pregnancy. Mississippi would ban it at 15 weeks in. So this is this will be the most important Supreme Court case on abortion in 30 or 40 years.
All right, NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.